Sometimes I'll be researching an episode and get the idea for another episode from whatever Google rabbit hole I find myself in. That's how this episode came about, while I was researching the story behind surfing. I got into the topic of words and phrases popularized because of surf culture, and also because my husband has been begging me to do an episode relating to his favorite movie, The Big Lebowski. This is probably right up his alley. I'm your host, Emily Prokop, and this is the story behind Surfer Lingo. But first, a quick message. Every episode, I talk to you, and it's a very one-sided conversation. Did you ever want to have a way to talk back? Maybe you know a bit of trivia about a past episode subject I didn't mention, or maybe you want to share a random piece of trivia you picked up during the day. Join the Story Behind Facebook group by clicking the link in the show notes, or by going to bit.ly/TSB Facebook. See you trivia buffs there. Some basic surfer lingo we're probably all aware of includes stoked for enthusiastic and gnarly for awesome, but can also mean tough. When researching surf lingo, I found it may even have been the predecessor to Valley Girl speak, which still carries on today when you hear 20 and 30-somethings unable to remove the useless like from their speaking. While phrases like gnarly, rad, and bodacious spread because they could be applied to more than just a wave, surfing-specific phrases still became widely known, even if they couldn't be used all the time, like hang 10, which meant riding a wave with all 10 toes on the nose of the surfboard. There's also hang loose, usually accompanied by throwing up a hand signal with thumbs and pinkies extended and the other 3 fingers bent down. This is known as the shaka, and it began in Hawaii as a salute among surfers. Like many hand gestures, be careful of where you use it. While it means 6 in China and beer in Russia, in some Caribbean islands, it's not as family-friendly. One story of its origin comes from Hamana Kalili, a train security guard who had previously lost his 3 middle fingers in a sugar mill accident. When kids would try to hitch a ride on the trains he guarded, they would throw up the hand signal, imitating his lost fingers, as a way to let others know the coast was clear and he wasn't looking. Regardless of whether I'm talking to my son or daughter, I sometimes refer to them as dude, usually when I'm mildly exasperated with them. And the hallway in our house has somehow become a shrine to the dude Jeff Bridges' character from The Big Lebowski.
I'm the dude. So that's what you call me, you know? That or his dudeness or duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
I was surprised to find out dude actually came from the 1800s and was a term used to mock young men trying to keep up with the latest fashions. It may have even been a shortened version of doodle, meaning dandy. If you're thinking of the song Yankee Doodle Dandy, did you ever wonder what a doodle dandy actually was while singing it? Well, in the song, this young man has returned from the new colonies and tries to sport a feather in his cap as the hip Europeans were doing, only to be seen for the Yankee he really was. By the way, calling it macaroni was a term for the British who wore fancy clothing and put on an air of sophisticated culture after traveling Europe. Dude then evolved into a term for city slickers, which is where the term dude ranch comes from, a cattle ranch converted to a tourist destination for urbanites. And finally, everybody could be a dude. Boys, girls, surfers, valley girls, and even a rugged guy who liked bowling and was just looking to get his rug back. You heard Michelangelo say it, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle that is, not the painter. You may have even had a t-shirt with Bart Simpson riding a skateboard saying it, although it was rarely ever heard on the actual television show, if at all. Most likely you've heard the word Cowabunga. But for the younger generation who maybe didn't live through the 80s, how would you answer if you asked, what does Cowabunga mean? Believe it or not, Cowabunga was a made-up word first used on the Howdy Doody show. No, not some forgotten reboot from the 80s, but before that. The original from the late 1940s and 50s. Show writer Eddie Keene made up the word for a Native American character, Chief Thunderthud, to use when he got angry or frustrated. As the children who watched the show grew a little older and became surfers, The term made its way into surf culture as a way of saying, awesome! This included being used in the television show Gidget we talked about in the previous episode, The Story Behind Surfing. The term died down a bit during the 70s, but when surf culture made its comeback to mainstream in the 80s, so did Cowabunga. If anything from the 80s needs to make a comeback, I vote the term Cowabunga become common lexicon again. Surf the internet. This is a phrase that's been said so often and for so long, we probably don't question where it came from, or who came up with it. But it can be traced back to librarian Jean Armour Polly, who wrote an article about the internet in 1992, which was fairly new at the time. While searching for just the right title, she had been using a mouse pad provided by the Apple Library in Cupertino, California, that had a surfer on it that said Information Surfer, and inspiration struck.
I wanted something that expressed the fun I had using the internet, as well as hit on the skill and, yes, endurance necessary to use it well. I also needed something that would evoke a sense of randomness, chaos, and even danger. I wanted something fishy, net-like, nautical.
Inspired by that image on the mouse pad, she titled the article Surfing the Internet, and the phrase caught on. It's hard to pinpoint if this came before or after channel surfing, but there is speculation that channel surfing may have been used to talk about trying to find a radio station, or seeking a good radio wave. The role of Jean Armour Polly was played by Kathe Kline from Rock Your Retirement. The music provided during the episode was performed by the band And Robots. Find more of their music at and-robots.com. Information for this episode was sourced from The Atlantic, Slate, BuzzFeed, and more links which can be found in the show notes at thestorybehindpodcast.com. Want to talk more about this episode or past episodes of The Story Behind? Join the Facebook group by clicking on the link in the show notes or by going to bit.ly/TSB Facebook. TSB like The Story Behind. Thanks for listening.